Hey guys, in this video we are going to be making this adorable little angel ornament. Her name is Cinnamon. She is number 2 in a series. We did the first one just a couple of weeks ago. Actually, it was probably a little bit over a month ago, and her name was Whimsy. So finally we have number 2. If you watched my previous video showing how to make Whimsy, you will already know most of the steps to making this one. She's done very similarly. She just has a little bit of different embellishments. You can see she's got these pine needle wings instead of ribbon wings. However, if you did not see video number 1, or if you just need a refresher, then stick with me and we will go through making her step by step. So first of all, let's talk about what is included in the kits for her. Now, a word about that really quickly. If you don't have the kit, you can just follow along with your own materials. I will be giving you fabric sizes, all that stuff. Or if you would like, you can find the kit that includes everything that you're gonna see here in this video on my website, and I will put a link to that right below this video. Just keep in mind that she is going to be limited. We're only gonna be making about 200 of this kit. We'd only done about 100 of Whimsy, and she was gone within, I think, less than 2 hours. So we're making a few extra for Cinnamon. And again, I'll put the link right below. So let's go ahead and talk about everything that you're going to get in the kit, or that you'll need to make her yourself. So first thing that you will need is a soft foam angel shape. This is a specialty foam shape, but you can find her in the Ornament Girl shop. I will put a link to that right below this video. You will need about 100 or so straight pins. These are size 17 dressmaker pins. You're going to need a few yards of a rat tail cord or trim. This one that we're using in the kit is 1 millimeter, and it's an iridescent white. Now, we've got 3 yards included in the kit, but you're actually not going to need that much. We've just included a little bit extra just in case. We've also got this silver filigree medallion that's going to be used for the halo, and then we've got some crystal beads and red pearl beads. Also for the wings, we've got these little pine branches. These are about 2.5 inches in length, and in the kit there are 2 of them. Now, if you don't have these exact pieces, you could use a branch cut off of a floral from your local craft store or something similar. You can get creative with that, but the ones that are in the kit are about 2.5 inches long. And fabrics. You're going to need 3 different colors, and these are 2-inch squares, and I've got 16 of each of these. And then finally, for the bottom of the angel, you'll need 1 3-inch square. If you've got the kit, you'll find it inside the paper insert that comes inside your kit. This piece of fabric is for the base of the angel. So in addition to the materials that are inside your kit, you're also going to need a couple of tools. You'll need a pair of scissors, and then also you're going to need a little bit of glue. The glue is going to be for 2 things. First, to glue the cording around the head of the angel, and then also to glue the little pine branches to the back of the angel to create her wings. I am going to use hot glue for gluing on the pine branches just because you need a little bit more glue in that spot. But I'm going to be using Beacon's 3-in-1 Advanced Craft Glue, which is a clear and tacky glue for gluing on the cording around the angel's head. All right, so let's go ahead and start. We're going to get started with that 3-inch square to cover the base of the cone. So just sitting this down in front of me so the pattern side is facing down, I'm going to roughly center the angel cone on top. That way I can start pinning it around the base to hold it in place. So I'm going to pull up 2 corners to start, and then take a pin and pin this into the side of the angel cone. I'm not pinning into the bottom, I'm pinning into the side, and I'm angling it slightly upwards so that I don't accidentally have it come through the base of the cone and poke me. So I'm going to pin one side in place and then flip it around and do the other side. Just making sure that that piece of fabric stays roughly centered over the bottom. So now I've got it held into place. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the opposite 2 corners. And I'm just pinning pretty close to the bottom of the cone. This will all get covered up by the dress of the angel. The points that are coming down from the bottom of the dress are going to cover up all the pins on this layer, so you don't have to worry about that part. And now that we've got the 4 corners held in place, I'm just going to take a few more pins and just keep adding them around the base until it's held into place pretty snugly. And you're gonna use about 20 or so pins in this part. And I'm just kind of going in between of the pins I've already placed and working my way around. Again, also making sure that I keep angling the pin just slightly upwards into the cone so that I don't poke myself through the bottom of the angel. All right, that looks pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim off this excess that is sticking up over top of my pin line. That part does not have to be perfect. We just want to make it so that we don't have a lot of bulk sticking up over top of those pins because we're gonna be layering all of our dress fabric on top of it. All right, so it's time to move on to her dress. Now there's actually a couple of different ways that you can arrange the fabric to make her dress. In this one, I did horizontal stripes going up from the bottom, and that's what I'm gonna do here in this video, starting with my dark red. Whatever colors you've got, of course, you can arrange however you'd like to. So whichever fabric you want to begin with, you're gonna take your first square. Now we're going to be folding this into a smaller square. So holding the fabric with the pattern side facing away from you, you're going to fold it in half once, top to bottom, and then in half again, side to side, creating a smaller square. And you'll see with this smaller square that it has 2 finished edges now and then 2 raw edges. So with the open side facing left and the raw edges at the top, we're going to take this and hold it along the base of the cone so that the bottom part, which is the finished edges, the 2 finished edges, and that tip that's formed between them is facing downward and extending beyond the base of the cone by about 1/2 inch or so. And you don't have to be exact, you can eyeball this, but basically the 2 corners, the 2 side corners of this diamond, because we're holding it now like a diamond, are sitting near the base of the cone around that pin line that we created. And I'm gonna go ahead and take a pin and pin the left side down. Now remember, the left side is the side that is open. So we're gonna take a pin and pin in the corner, holding that in place. And again, keep in mind that you want your pin to go slightly upward into the cone so that you don't accidentally poke yourself through the base. Holding that in place. We're gonna leave this unpinned for now, but because this is the open side and we've stuck a pin through it, it should stay in place. And we're gonna go ahead and get a second square of the same color and do the same. We're gonna fold it in half once, finger pressing, and then fold it in half again. Again, we want the unfinished sides to be facing up and the open side facing to the left. Now what we're gonna do here, layering it the same way, the same distance from the base, we're gonna take the left edge of this new diamond and cover the right corner of the first diamond. That way, when we stick a pin in to hold it in place, we're holding down both this second square or diamond and the first one. Just like that. We're gonna do this all the way around. Again, I've got this open to the left, holding it like a diamond with my raw edges facing up and my finished edges facing down. And again, I'm moving to the right and I'm positioning this so that the left corner overlaps the right corner of the previous piece. All right, and then when you get around to the last open space, we're gonna cover that with one last square, and we're gonna pin down both the left and right sides. Filling in that space and finishing this bottom row of the dress. Just like that. And you should have roughly, I think this is 8 pieces. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, 8 pieces. So we're gonna move on to the next color of the dress, which for me is this tiny floral fabric. And we're doing the exact same fold. We're gonna be doing this exact same fold all the way up until the end. So I've got my open side to the left and the raw, and the raw edge is facing upwards. So now we're gonna place this just a little bit further up now. So instead of extending beyond the base like we did, we wanna keep moving up. So we're gonna come up by about 1/2 inch. And we're gonna begin this so that it is sitting between 2 of the points from below. That way we're covering up the pins that are in between of those pieces. Again, I'm pinning at the left. And leaving my right side free, which I will pin down now with this second piece of fabric. Now, as we move up the dress, of course, we're going from wider foam to more narrow foam, which means that every couple of layers, we're going to be reducing the number of pieces that it takes to go around the layer. And that means that we might not always be able to place each point perfectly between the points from below. And that is totally okay. You can see that this happens in this one and it looks fine. So don't be too worried about being perfect because you won't be able to do that. Otherwise you'd have 8 pieces up here at the top too, and that would be very bulky. So don't worry about perfection. You're just gonna cover up pins as best you can as you're working your way up the foam. But if there are some pins showing when you get to the top, don't worry because we do have beads that we're going to be using to embellish the dress, and I actually like to use beads also to hide any imperfections and pins that might be showing. So again, don't worry about perfection, but we're just going to keep working our way around this layer and then moving up the dress. Now right here, you'll see that I kind of came over to the left a little bit more than I have been, and I did that for 2 reasons. I've got a space here that I could probably put just 1 square in between and get away with it, and that would be fine. But by doing that, I got this little edge here, and I know I said don't be perfect, and you don't have to be. This could be covered up later by beads, but it's kind of a wide space to cover with 1 piece to begin with. So I'm gonna squeeze 2 pieces in here, moving this a little bit further left, so that I can hide that raw edge in the pin down there, and then I'll just put another piece right here in this last space. And there is layer 2 all done. So I'm gonna move on to my layer 3 fabric, which is this larger floral, folding the exact same way, folding it into a smaller square, holding it like a diamond, and of course the open side to the left. And now I'm moving up just a little bit more. And you can see we're already almost halfway up the cone. Once this layer is done, we're going to be halfway up the cone already. It's a very quick ornament to make. And I've got a couple of pins that are going to show after this last piece, but that's okay. I'll hide those later. I could have stuck 2 pieces in there just like I did on the end of layer 2, but I think I'm going to leave it just like this. And now that I've done all 3 colors, I'm actually going to switch back to my red now and continue on working my way up the cone. Alrighty, switching to my second color. Now, when you put these squares on the angel, you're going to find that the top point of those raw edges is going to be touching or almost touching the head of the angel. And that is totally fine and about where you should be. Also, we're near the top now where it's getting more narrow, and if you want to be on the safe side to make sure you don't poke yourself through the opposite side when you're pinning, just put your pin on a slightly downward angle. So opposite what we did down here, we're going to aim it slightly downward into the thicker part of the foam so that we don't accidentally poke ourselves through the other side. All right, we've got one layer to go. Now this layer, the pieces of fabric are going to be folded the same way to start, but we are going to make a little bit of a change because we've arrived at the neck of the angel and we don't want to have the fabric going up over her head at that point. So I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to get started, like I said, folding it the same way. So creating that smaller square. Once we've done that though, and we've got the raw edges facing upwards and the open side facing to the left as usual, we're actually going to go ahead and take scissors and trim off above the halfway point. So let me hold this so that you can see it in the video. So I'm just slightly above the two corners. Here's the two corners on the sides. I'm just slightly above that, and I'm going to trim off the top. And that is just so that when we lay this down, we don't have that excess fabric with the raw edges going up and covering the head. Now, on this layer too, of course, we need to be careful that we're not going to poke ourselves through the opposite side because this is a lot more narrow. So when I pin here in the left corner, I'm going to go ahead and make sure to angle that downwards so that I don't poke myself. And also on this layer, I like to just go ahead and pin the right side as well instead of waiting until my next piece to hold that down. I just find it a little bit easier to work with up here if I've went ahead and pinned down both sides as I go. And if you want to save a pin, then you can go ahead and do things the same way we did before and wait till your next piece and hold down both the left side and the right side of this one, but I find this easier. So I've got this prepared the same way, and I'm going to go ahead and trim off that top edge a little bit. And I'm moving to the right again. I think I need to trim a little more. We'll trim a little closer to the corners on this one. So when you arrive to the top of the angel like this, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. We're not going to be able to hide every single pin right now, and that's okay. We can put the messiest side towards the back because then the wings and all that stuff is going to help to hide it. And then also we can put some beads in the front like I've done here, which will also help to hide any messy corners or pins. So we want to take a look at this and just figure out right now what side should be the back and what side should be the front. And I like to put the messiest side to the back. And to me, it looks like right here is going to be the messiest side. I've got two raw edges coming together and two pins. And that side, those pins and those raw edges would be the hardest to hide by beads. So if that's the back, that means that this is the front. And actually that looks like it will work out. There's only one pin there. I can put a bead right there on top of that, and that won't show at all. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that right now so that I can remember that this is going to be the very front of the angel. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my beads, and on this ornament I did the clear beads across the front. I did 3 of them. I'm just going to put one for now. So here is one of my little clear crystal beads, and I'm just going to go ahead and stick that onto a pin, and then I'm going to pull this one center pin out if I can get a hold of it. Oops. And then go ahead and replace that where that was. I'm actually going to move it a little bit closer to the edge even, so I can hide those raw fabric edges too. And cover that up with that bead. And there we go. So that's going to be the front of my angel when she's all said and done. But from there, what I'm going to do is begin wrapping her head with the cord. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm going to be using Beacon's 3-in-1 craft glue. This craft glue is really awesome. It works fantastic. However, you have to be really careful with it because it does stick to absolutely everything. So I'm actually going to go ahead and take off my arm warmers here because I don't want to ruin them. And also, you might want to make sure that you've got like a paper towel nearby. That way, if you have to wipe it really quickly, you will be able to. Now, what I like to do to put this cord on is put a couple of lines of glue up the head and then begin wrapping starting at the base of the back of the head. So rather than cover the whole head, I just like to draw some lines like this. Now, most likely before I get to the top, I'm gonna have to add a little more glue because this will have started to dry, but that's okay. And then I'm starting back here, so I'm gonna put a little extra back here. Oops, I just realized that my hand is kind of covering it. Sorry about that. And I'm gonna go ahead and lay this, the end of it, right at the back where that ugly side of the top layer was that we talked about a minute ago. And I'm gonna start wrapping this around. Oops, I need to put the glue a little bit lower down there to get it started. So I'm wrapping that around the base one time, and now I'm just going to move up the head from there. And I find it easiest to spin the angel rather than try to wrap, instead of trying to wrap the cord and move the cord around. Just hold the cord in one spot with your hand and let it fall into place as you spin the angel around. Just setting each new layer right over top of the last one. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more glue up top because it's starting to dry up there. And you'll find that when you get past the halfway point and start working your way back up the head up here, that's actually the hardest part because your trim is going to want to slide upwards because you're moving back down onto a more narrow, smaller diameter area. So just take your time, let the glue grab it. You don't need to rush because you can always add more glue. Let me wipe my hands off. And I'm just going to add a little bit more in the very, very tippy top there. Whoops. And then once you get to the very top and it's covered, you can snip off the excess, and I'm just pushing down that little bit of extra on the end there. Make sure it stays in place. And don't worry if it's not perfect up top, because we are going to be putting that halo on top anyway, so you're not really going to be able to see everything up there. Now while we're letting that dry for a second, let's go ahead and do the hanger. So what I'm going to do first is just cut a little piece of this off for the hanger. So just look and see how long you want it. I'm going to do mine about like that, and that is about, let me measure that for you. That's about 9 inches or so. So I'm cutting that off of there. And I'm gonna go ahead and stick a pin through both ends of this. You'll have to do it one at a time because this is so thin. So I've got those pinned into a loop, the ends, and I'm turning this around. Remember, the front of the angel is where we stuck that pin. We're gonna flip it around to the back, and then just a little bit down from the head, maybe a 1/2 inch or so, I'm gonna go ahead and pin this into the back of the angel. But remember that we wanna keep that pin on a downward angle so that we don't poke ourselves through the other side. And don't worry if this doesn't feel too secure to you just yet. We're gonna be putting layers of wings over top of that, which is going to help to secure that. But I'm just checking to make sure that that's centered in the back if I'm looking at it from the front, and it looks like it's pretty good to me. So now that the hanger is in place, we've got just a few more things to do before she is all done. We've got the halo, we've got the wings, and then we've got decorating her dress with the beads. So we're gonna go ahead and finish the wings. And to do that, you're gonna need those 2 little pine branches. And like I said in the beginning, if you don't have these, you can use something else, maybe something from the floral section at your local craft store. These particular wings have these little ends here where all the pieces are put together. We want to actually snip off a tiny bit of this because they're just a little bit too long and we don't want that to show. So we don't want to snip off too much because it's holding together all of the branches, but I'm going to snip off just a little bit, like maybe 1/3 of it or so. It just flew across the table. Alrighty, like that. And I'm gonna go ahead and take some hot glue and put a dab of it here right on top of where I pinned down my hanger. Let me just grab my hot glue here. And I'm just gonna put a little dab of it right on top. Well, I'm gonna try if it comes out. There we go. And now I am going to just lay these on there. Now it's okay if they're not looking exactly like the way you want them yet because they're bendable. Right now we just want to get them on there and grabbed. Just let that dry for a second. They're kind of sticking straight out, looks funny, but we'll fix that in a minute. All right, and while we are waiting for that to dry and get nice and secure, let's go ahead and make the layer of wings that go on top, the rest of this white trim. Actually, you probably won't even use the rest of the white trim. And you want to start with a beaded pin for this. So I'm going to go ahead and stick one of my beaded pins through the end of the cord. And I'm just going to form a couple of loops. So my loops are about 4 inches long. You don't have to be perfect about that. You don't have to measure or anything like that unless you want to, but my loops are about 4 inches. Missed the trim that time. Alrighty, and now I'm going to go ahead and push this down on top. So it's going to be really hard to push the pin right between the branches because of that glue that's in there, and plus these are kind of thick and difficult to push a pin through, but you can push the pin either right below them or right above them. I think I'm going to go for right above, and remember that we want to keep this pin on a downward angle so that we don't poke ourselves through the front of the angel. And if you're having a hard time pushing it down in there because of glue, you can actually take your excess fabric, if you've got some, or another piece of fabric, and use that as a cushion to push that down in there. And I'm just going to go ahead and adjust this a little bit. I want to kind of hide the ends of the pine branches a little bit. It's okay if they show a little bit, but just hide them as best as you can. There we go. And what I'm gonna also do is take the ends of these, and I'm just holding it in place just in case the glue's not 100% dry, but I'm just kind of bending them upwards just a little bit so they're not sticking straight out to the side. And there we go. She's looking so cute. Alrighty, so now I'm gonna go ahead and add the beads and stuff on the rest. Actually, you know what? No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna start with the halo. So for the halo, you're gonna use that little filigree medallion that came in the kit. And we're gonna start, we actually have to put beads on here because the pen will go right through that hole. So we're gonna start with one bead on the top. I'm gonna start with the crystal bead because that's what's gonna show at the top of the halo. And just put that right through the center hole of the halo. And then I'm going to add one of the red pearl beads, and that's just to give her a little bit more distance off the top of her head. The more beads you add here at the bottom of the halo, the higher it'll sit off of her head. And if you don't want it to sit off of her head very far, then don't put more than a couple of beads here. And I'm gonna go ahead and end with one more crystal bead. So I've got a crystal bead, the halo, the pearl bead, and another crystal bead. And I'm gonna go ahead and stick this right in the top of her head, but slightly on an angle towards me. So the pin is actually angled towards me just a little bit. And that way, when she's sitting, it will sit back a little bit like that. And now all we've got left to do is add some more beads to her dress and finish her off. So I know I want to stick a couple more beads up here at the top to help hide any leftover raw edges that are up there. And just to make it pretty, give her a little collar. And then I'm going to go ahead and stick the rest of my beads all around to hide any raw edges. I've got a raw edge right there. Actually, let's move that up a little bit. We've got some raw edge showing right above it. Alrighty. That is it. Oops, she is all done. Isn't she so cute? So I hope that you had fun making this, and if you've got any questions, please just leave them right below the video in the comments and I will help you out the best that I can. Thanks so much for watching and happy ornamenting.